today for the Social Services Planning Subcommittee meeting. Today is October 10th, 2024, and it is 3:01 p.m. as per my clock. And so we're just going to give a few more minutes for other people who might be just joining us to have a chance to log in. And then we'll go ahead and move forward with introductions and the rest of the items on our agenda. So I thank you so much for being here and being a part of this important subcommittee. And I appreciate your patience as we just give people a few more minutes to join us. So thank you. And for those that might be just joining in, this is the Social Services Planning Subcommittee here in the PAG region at Pima Association of Governments. And I am Janine Sullivan. I am the Transportation, Mobility, and Accessibility Program Manager here. And we are going to get started with introductions, et cetera, and the rest of the items on the agenda in just a few minutes. We're just giving people a few more minutes to get logged in, and we will go ahead and get started. So thank you for your patience, and thanks for being a part of this meeting. Okay, so to be respectful of everyone's time, we're just going to go ahead and move forward with the items on the agenda and start with introductions. So for those that, again, might have just joined us, welcome. This is the Social Services Planning Subcommittee here for PAG, and I am Janine Sullivan. I am the Transportation, Mobility, and Accessibility Program Manager. So I appreciate you all investing time today to be a part of this important subcommittee. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask people to do some brief introductions, your name, your organization, perhaps a little bit about how you serve in our region. And in no particular order, I'm just going to go through the names and allow you to have that opportunity to introduce yourself. And I'm going to ask for some grace in case I miss a name. So feel free to raise your hand, so to speak, through the technology that we have afforded to us. And I'll do my best to circle back and allow you to have that opportunity. So I'm going to go ahead and start with, I believe, Bonnie. So good afternoon, Bonnie. Thank you for being a part of today's meeting.
Good afternoon, Janine, and hello, everyone. And I'm Bonnie Bizzata, and I am with the Primavera Foundation. And so I am excited to be here in that capacity and look forward to the good work ahead. And I am here, my position title is Public Policy Research and Education Officer for Primavera.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate you. All right. And then I see Lisa Reams.
Hello, everyone. Lisa Reams. I serve as the Vice President for Programs and Services for Pima Council on Aging.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate you being here as well. Carmen?
Hello, everyone. I'm Carmen Johnson, and I am a Deputy Director at Catholic Community Services. We support adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities in group homes and semi-independent living situations.
Great. Thank you so much, Carmen. I appreciate you being here as well. And then I see Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica Winchester, and I'm also with Catholic Community Services of Southern Arizona. I'm the program administrator, and I work with all people with disabilities. Doesn't matter. We serve in all capacities, but we specifically do vocational services. So people looking for a job, work training, summer youth programs, and we have program for deaf and hard of hearing as well. So we also specialize in deaf services. And I think I've covered it all.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Jessica. And then Lisa?
Yeah, Lisa Florin. I jumped a little bit when Lisa Reams got called on. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Florin, she, her. I'm the Senior Director of Financial Wellness at United Way. So I do a lot of work with our financial empowerment, financial education, housing stability, and homelessness efforts. Liz Cozy from United Way, I think, has usually been the person coming to the meetings. So this will be my first one, kind of pinch hitting along with her today.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being a part of this today as well. Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Tompkins I'm a board member at Tucson Refugee Ministry and the former director of Tucson Refugee Ministry, and I now work as outreach pastor at Casas Church.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate you being here as well. Let's see if I accidentally missed anyone, so I make sure I don't overlook anyone. So I'm going to just kind of keep abreast of anybody else that might join and see if I need to circle back on introductions. So I'm going to ask for some grace on that. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with the next item on the agenda, since looks like we've completed the introductions, if I'm not mistaken. So the next item on the agenda is the in-kind form. And so regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG collects data on the time dedicated to the meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. And if you are paid with federal dollars, we would ask for you to let us know now in a verbal setting, or otherwise noted through some kind of email communication, so that we don't count for it in our in-kind collection. So the time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and the associated meeting materials. And at the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. And of course, time spent working on PAG or RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. So I'm just going to go ahead and see if I see any hands up for anyone's position who's paid for through federal dollars, whether in entirety or in part. So I see you, Lisa. Thank you. All right. I think I captured everyone there. So thank you so much for that. All right. We're going to go ahead and move forward with the next item on the agenda. So the item on the agenda is the overview of social services block grant and subcommittee roles. And so for those of you who have been a part of this process before, or maybe this is brand new to you, let's go ahead and kind of set the stage for this through this overview. So this committee, what it does is it recommends funding allocations for Pima County for various service categories of the Federal Social Services Block Grant, commonly referred to as SSBG, to the Arizona Department of Economic Security, or DES. And so the objectives of this particular subcommittee is this. Basically, we have a guidance that's set before us, and it includes the following goals for the SSBG program in the state of Arizona. And the first of these is achieving or maintaining economic self-support to prevent, reduce, or eliminate dependency. The second would be achieving or maintaining self-sufficiency, including reduction or prevention of dependency. The third is preventing or remedying neglect, abuse, or exploitation of children and adults unable to protect their own interests, or preserving, rehabilitating, or reuniting families. The fourth is preventing or reducing inappropriate institutional care by providing community-based care, home-based care, or other forms of less intensive care. And the fifth is securing referral or admission for institutional care when other forms of care cannot, or are not rather, appropriate, or providing services to individuals in institutions. So some background on SSBG is that this committee provides recommendations on funding allocations for Pima County for various service categories of the Federal Social Services Block Grant, or SSBG, to the Arizona Department of Economic Security. And so human services organizations in Pima County, such as yourselves, may then contract with the state to provide services using these funds. And there's around 29 service categories under the Social Services Block Grant. However, the task before us is really just focused on 8 or 9 of these categories. And what you're going to discover is that the recommendations made from your work on this subcommittee may result in funding for agencies in state fiscal year 2026. But we ask for you to keep in mind that the total amount of money available for Pima County through this block grant does not change significantly from year to year. And it's typically about 1.4 million. And as you're going to see in the items ahead in the agenda, you'll see it's around 1.45, something like that. So I think it's $1,454,627, something around that, if we want to be really exact. So typically it doesn't change much. It's around 1.4 million. So the committee is going to discuss local issues and trends to determine local priorities. And it will make funding recommendations for service categories. I need to emphasize this, for service categories, not agencies. It does not review applications, reports, or have input into the state process once the plan is approved. So that's kind of the road ahead. That's a general overview or summary of the social services block grant and our roles here as subcommittee members. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move to the next item on the agenda. And this is the overview of those funding amounts and associated service intents. And I think this will give you some helpful context for what I shared just a moment ago. So we're going to go ahead and look at the specific funding amounts and service intents. And we're going to start with the Department of Child Safety. And so when viewing this particular screen, you'll notice that there's some different subcategories, if you will. So the first is supportive intervention and guidance counseling. And then you'll see the respective target group, some status or eligibility. And then you'll see the two different columns reflective of state fiscal year 2025 at the local plan level, and then state fiscal year 2026. And as a reminder, we are focused on state fiscal year 2026. And so you'll notice that the difference between the two state fiscal years, the amount has not changed much. And like I said, it's the amount of funding doesn't really change that much from year to year. And so off to the far right, to give additional context, you'll see there is a very specific service intents, and all of this came from the Department of Economic Security. So for this particular subcategory under Department of Child Safety, the service intent is to provide counseling and guidance for youth and adult domestic violence offenders due to increasing violence in the home. So that is the intent behind that one. And you'll see that the state fiscal year 2026 local plan level amount currently is $34,602. The next category down is supportive intervention and guidance counseling. In the same spirit, under state fiscal year 2026, you'll see the amount is $182,427. And the service intent for that is to assist low-income children and families who are otherwise ineligible for state services to access available resources, services, and benefit programs effectively, including counseling for problem pregnancies. And then the third one is behavioral therapeutic activities. And for state fiscal year 2026, you'll see $69,003. And so to minimize the impact of the delays and problem behaviors by children with special needs or behavioral problems by providing learning assessment and support skills to childcare professionals in childcare facilities, behavioral therapeutic activities, including intervention assistance to families and childcare or preschool staff would be provided. And so if we look at the cumulative total for that, you'll see $286,000, or I'm sorry, excuse me, $286,031, or $286,031. Let me start over right there. So $286,031. Let me say that correctly. That is the collective amount there. So that is for the Department of Child Safety. And we will go ahead and move to the next category. under the Division of Aging and Adult Services, otherwise known as DAAS. And so in a similar spirit, you'll see the services off to the far left, the target group, and then of course the state fiscal year 2026 local plan level, and then the respective service intents. So for this particular category, it's home care for elderly adults and personal care, housekeeping, home health, and shopping services, clients that are unable to meet all the needs of maintaining a home in a safe and sanitary manner, or to shop for their own food and have insufficient support systems such as family and friends to assist them. And so at the state fiscal year 2026 local plan level, you'll see $350,648. And then the service intent, of course, is to enable clients to remain in their own homes by providing assistance with essential personal needs and in performing routine household maintenance, including shopping for basic needs, as well as recording changes in client status. The next is case management. State fiscal year 2026 at the local plan level is $348,022. And its service intent is to enable clients to remain in the least restrictive setting possible by providing care, coordination, including assessment of needs, linkage to services and benefit programs, and effective utilization of available. And I'm not able to see the next component of that, so I apologize. I might have to circle back and provide you the remainder of that sentence. I'm not able to see it on my screen at the moment. And then home delivered meals. State fiscal year 2026 local plan level is to achieve or maintain adequate nutrition by delivering nutritious meals to the client's residence. Right, so we will go to the next category on the social services block grant. And this is under the Division of Community Assistance and Development. And as you can see, there's a lot more subcategories, and the font gets a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna do my best here. But it's supportive intervention, guidance, and counseling is the first component, and it has its associated target group of adults and youth. And for state fiscal year 2026 at the local plan level, it's $24,766, if I'm reading that correctly. And then it has its associated service intents. And I might have to circle back here in just a moment. I'm gonna see if I could just pull it up on my own screen here so I can actually read it's in entirety versus off the PDF here. So bear with me one moment, and I'm gonna make sure I'm on the same tab here. Apologize for that. All right, let's do it. Let's do it this way. All right, here we go. So supportive intervention, guidance, and counseling, when we're referring to the service intent, it's to provide crisis counseling and emergency shelter, as well as assisting clients in stabilizing their situations and in accessing other services and benefit programs. For crisis intervention shelter services with the state fiscal year 2026 local plan level of $63,580. Its service intent is to provide emergency shelter to victims or potential victims of sexual assault or domestic abuse to prevent physical or emotional harm. And then for case management, the state fiscal year local plan level is $37,711, and it is to assist victims of sexual abuse and domestic violence in obtaining safe and stable living situations and developing a case plan. And then there's three categories under legal assistance. And the first of which is for a target group of adults and domestic violence victims with a local plan level for state fiscal year 2026 of $19,216. And it's to protect the rights of individuals by providing assistance with civil legal issues for individuals and families in need of food stamp assistance. The next one is still legal assistance, but it's for civil legal matters for low income residents. And the state fiscal year 2026 local plan level is still $19,216. but it's to protect the rights of individuals by providing consultation and legal services for individuals and families facing eviction or needing landlord-tenant mitigation. And then I think the third legal assistance category is for civil legal matters or for low-income residents. The state fiscal year local plan level is a little bit higher, and it's $28,565. And it's to protect the rights of individuals by providing assistance with civil legal issues, including domestic situations, landlord, tenant problems, and obtaining appropriate identification for government services. The next one is emergency shelter for adult domestic violence victims with a state fiscal year 2026 local plan level of $53,128. And it's to provide immediate short-term shelter to persons who are without shelter or a fixed place of residence to prevent homelessness. And then housing support services, I believe, is the last item in this particular category for services, and that has a target group of adults and youth. And the state fiscal year 2026 local plan level is $43,148. And it's to prevent homelessness by providing services that focus on addressing immediate needs to keep persons at risk of becoming homeless in their current housing if possible, by providing the necessary supports to maintain that housing or to locate new housing if necessary. And if we could just go back one slide to the, I think it's DAAS, I wanted to make sure that I did touch back on the item that I wasn't really able to have confidence that I was reading all of the particulars. So I think it was for case management that I wasn't confident that I read all of it. So I'm just going to reiterate that. So it's for case management with a state fiscal year 2026 local plan level, $348,022 to enable clients to remain in the least restrictive setting possible by providing care, coordination, including assessment of needs, linkage to services and benefit programs, effective utilization of available resources, advocacy, and continued monitoring. So I think those are the pieces that I wasn't able to read earlier. So I apologize for that. So, all right, so we'll go ahead and move forward with the next category, which I believe will be the Workforce Development Administration. And you'll see there's basically one large service category known as employment services. And the target group is for adults, which is any individual 18 years of age and older. And the state fiscal year 2026 local plan level is $41,708. And it has quite a large service intent, as you would expect. And it's to provide employment services such as childcare, transportation, employment screening, assessment or testing, structured job skills and job seeking skills, specialized therapies such as occupational, speech or physical therapy, special training and tutoring, which including literacy training, GED preparation, pre-vocational training, provision of books, supplies, and instructional materials, counseling and case management that works to ensure graduation and job placement, transportation and referral to community resource for unemployed adults. And then the services should also include job training, minimally an associate's degree or a certificate for programs that have a demand for skilled job opportunities, and services are intended primarily for single head of households as well as unemployed adults, elderly, low-income adults, youth 18 to 28 at risk for homelessness, families, and rural adults. So that is the service intent for that particular category. And then we are going to kind of wrap it up with the RSA, Rehabilitation Services Administration. And in a similar model, we have two subcategories for services and then two respective service intents. So we have interpreter service for deaf adults who need interpreter assistance in accessing needed services. And then the state fiscal year 2026 local plan level is $23,955. And the service intent is to assist deaf individuals in accessing and utilizing community services, including emergency services, by providing interpreter services. And lastly, supportive intervention or guidance counseling for hearing impaired persons who have problems in adjusting to their disability at work and in family and in interpersonal relationships, And the state fiscal year 2026 local plan level is $34,208. And the service intent is to assist deaf and hearing impaired clients in solving or learning to cope with their disability by providing intervention, support, and counseling. And again, all this information came from the Department of Economic Security. All right, so that is a great overview of the different broad service categories and their respective funding and service intents, and then of course the cumulative amounts for each that were notated on the slides that you've been viewing. So we are going to go ahead and move with the next item on the agenda. And so on this particular item on the agenda is that we provide everyone who's a participant of this subcommittee to have an opportunity to either provide a fact sheet, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what that looks like and what that entails, or to offer a presentation. So in the next meeting that we've established a tentative date for, that will be your opportunity to either have submitted a fact sheet or provide a presentation, but the guidelines will be the same whether you're submitting a fact sheet or you're actually doing a presentation, because we want it to be consistent across the board. So for each of the broad service categories, whether it's the Division of Aging and Adult Services or Workforce Development Administration, et cetera, all the fact sheets have a very consistent model. So the fact sheet is intended to be used in alignment with the associated service intents for the respective category. And in the template, it will actually list all of the different service intents. And so what we will ask of you in the fact sheet is to kind of give us a regional needs overview, or in your presentation, right, to give us a regional needs overview. And so it's kind of asking you to provide a summary of the regional needs pertinent to that category. And then of course, the summary should point to the associated service intents. We'll ask you to kind of give us a description of any changes in regional services pertinent to that category. And again, they should point to the respective service intents. And obviously those should be connected to the services eligible for SSBG funding. We'll ask for you to kind of identify any changes in needs pertinent to that particular category, and the associated service intents, and of course, anything that would be connected to the eligible elements of SSBG funding. And then we'll also ask for you to potentially describe any known changes in funding pertinent to that category or the respective service intents. And then from a outcomes or effectiveness of SSBG funding, we'll ask for your input regarding that, and then any supporting references or documentation. And then of course you have an opportunity to provide any additional insights or concerns. So if you have any additional insights or concerns that are pertinent to that category, we would want you to kind of speak to those and make connections around only the service intents associated with that category, and of course any and only programs that are eligible for SSBG funding. And so if you would like to submit a fact sheet or do a presentation, please let me know, and then I can provide you with the respective template for that, whether you're going to do a presentation or just submit the fact sheet on its own accord. Either of those is appropriate. You're not required to do one. It's just if you would like to submit that information, you can, and we provide you the opportunity to do it in a form of a fact sheet or in the form of a presentation. And of course, I'm always available for any questions as you navigate that process. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of take a pause here for a moment and see if there are any questions at this time that I might be able to answer, or perhaps if appropriate, I would have to kind of, make sure that I know the answer to your question fully and can respond to it appropriately. So I think I see one hand up. Bonnie. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, Janine. Hello, everyone. I'm very new to this process. And I'm interested to just a little bit of background on this. If I do a quick back of the envelope sketch of the amounts, about half of all of the categories are going to the Division of Aging and Adult Services for those 3 areas that are there. And, I'm sure we're all thinking that the scope of the need is so much greater than any of these amounts of money can really begin to make much of an impact. And they're all very important. It's hard to figure out, is domestic violence counseling more important, or is eviction prevention, or, all of these categories. But since that is such a, extreme is too strong of a word, but since that is such a distinction between a significant amount of funding, almost $800,000 going into the Division of Aging versus all these other categories, I'm interested to know kind of what's the background and the history on that. It's, how did that analysis happen, and what's the logic behind it?
Yeah, I think those are good questions, and I'm going to take good notes here on your particular question and make sure that I have it written correctly in my own notes, and I might circle back with you to make sure I have it correct. But that would be a great question for me to serve up to the Department of Economic Security, because it would be only appropriate for them to speak to those particulars. So I will leave it at that, and so I can make sure that I make a note of that and follow up with the subcommittee members on that particular question. I get an answer back from them on that.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
my understanding of this effort is that so the local communities do have a voice in sort of how the distribution of funds happen, correct?
Through the process, through the fact sheets that you present and any presentations, there is a stage in the process of this subcommittee where the committee will make recommendations around that funding. And so we'll kind of talk through that when we get to that stage. But for public meeting laws, I have to stay within the confines of what's on the agenda today. So when we get to that particular meeting, I can definitely unpack that a little bit more. That's a good question.
Okay, and just to clarify, so in Maricopa County, this percentage distribution might look very different. So in other words, it's not the same percentage distribution across the state, presumably, because there's some, or is it the same for each county, or do we look a little bit different, say, than Cochise or Maricopa?
I wouldn't be able to speak to that. I honestly don't know the answer to that question, so I wouldn't be able to speak to it. But it's a good question, so I will write that down. But I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I would have to ask.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I think I see a couple hands up as well. Lisa.
Me, Lisa? Okay.
Sorry, Lisa
so
Warren.
I think maybe just some things to add on to the request of information that might be helpful for us. Mm-hmm. One would be if there's a way to see the historical distribution, maybe, of how the funding has changed over the past 10 years, if there have been shifts in the different allocations, kind of to what Bonnie was speaking to. And then also, if DES is able to show us what the breakdowns are in other counties, I think that would be helpful information for our group to have.
Okay, thank you. I wrote that down as well. All right, thank you, Lisa. And then I think I see Jennifer's hand up as well.
Yeah, I guess my question really is about are there sample fact sheets so that we know kind of what they're looking for fact sheets or presentations? And I guess my assumption is based off of those fact sheets or presentations is where they're going to try to look at allocations. Is that true?
So let me make sure that I'm trying to articulate this correctly. The fact sheets is just an opportunity, or the presentation is your opportunity to kind of speak to the things that I had shared that would be on the fact sheet or in your presentation. And that information will be part of the discussion process when we get to the stage of making recommendations around these funding and service intents. So it kind of paves the way for that conversation, if that's
Okay.
helpful.
And do we as a group get to even talk to each other about what those fact sheets are? Are we being assigned certain areas?
Yes, you will talk about it when we get to that stage in the process, because that's part of the subcommittee's role. And then as far as being assigned, I don't know that anyone's assigned it, but you would kind of raise your hand to do a presentation or provide a fact sheet pertinent to a funding and service intent that makes sense based on, you know, what your organization does or what you have a regional perspective on.
Okay.
Is that helpful? It'll make
Yes.
more sense when we get to some of the other parts of the process, but for now, I think that's probably a good summation of how it is. Looking to see if I see any other hands up. Okay, let me see. All right, so I have some questions written down from a variety of folks on this call today, and I'll see what I can do and how that that information is able to be passed on. So I will write that down, and I might reach back out to you for additional clarification. So I think that people that had asked questions was Bonnie, and then Lisa Florin, and then was it Jennifer? Is that right?
Yes, Jennifer Tompkins.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So just want to make sure I had the right people that I need to potentially circle back with. All right, perfect. Because I just don't want to characterize your question incorrectly, because then the answer wouldn't necessarily be commensurate with what you asked, right? All right, so we're going to go ahead and move forward with the next item on the agenda. And the next item on the agenda is adjournment. So in the original email that was sent out when you were asked to be a part of the subcommittee, and there were some tentative dates outlined in that particular email. So I would encourage you to take a look at those. And I believe they are tentatively set for the 24th of this month and then November 7th. And again, those are tentative dates. So just kind of, keep your perhaps your calendars open for those dates at this time. But as those dates and respective times get finalized, we will communicate those. And if I don't have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. And I appreciate everyone's investment of time today and being a part of the Social Services Planning Subcommittee.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.